Welcome back. Well, did you do your 30 yes questions, your 30 either/or questions? If you really did that, and I hope you did it, actually I hope your manager made sure that you did it, the reason is because those skills are going to help you throughout the rest of your career. We've been talking for 7 tapes so far about how to double your income, and everything that we've covered on every tape will help you do that. And you're either going to do it in a real short time or it's going to take you a long time. About the biggest increase I've seen from a salesperson falling for this information, I gave a class a lot like this class, and this is about all the information we covered in that one too. And a dealer sent one of his salespeople to the class. He was about an 8-car guy, nice guy, been selling cars for 8 or 9 years. Sent him to the class, and I got a call from the dealer 6 months later. He said, Joe, that salesman I sent to the class fell for all that stuff. What would be a good improvement 6 months later for an 8-car person? 10 cars, 12 cars, 16 cars, double? He said, Joe, this guy I sent you fell for all that stuff, and he delivered 53 new Toyotas for me last month. I'd say the guy really fell for it. This guy bit into this hook, line, and sinker. Some people are going to let go of their ego, their pride. They're going to go ahead and try some of this stuff. And some people are going to be stuck in such a rut that they can't let go, can't try new things. You got to get out of your rut. You got to set some goals. You got to open up out here. We're going to finish this set by talking about the second step of the basics. We had the pre-presentation steps. Now we're going to talk about the presentation steps. So turn over in your workbook to page 73. Page 73 in your workbook. Now, we've built rapport. We've investigated. We've made a good first impression. We told them who we are. Now it's time to present, and it's time to demonstrate. The first step, and before, remember rapport and investigation, you could go back and forth on these. The same thing is true of your presentation, your demonstration. It doesn't matter which you do first. So you can flip-flop those steps if you want to. It's not presentation and then demonstration. It can be demonstration and then presentation. You're doing part of your presentation on the demonstration drive if you do your demo first. So we'll talk about how to be a little more flexible on those. Now, when I say be a little more flexible on those, let me clarify something. If I've said anything throughout this tape set that your management does not want you to do, you need to remember who signs your paycheck. I don't sign it. If they say, I want you to do your presentation first, then that's the way you do it, no matter what we've talked about. Page 73, step number 1 in the presentation steps. Now remember, we've gone halfway through this. We've done the pre-presentation part. We've done a first impression. We've greeted. We've built rapport. We investigated. Now in this second half, it's time to present. Step number 1 is your controlled walk-around presentation. Your controlled walk-around presentation. Now, if we compared that to what most of us are doing, most of us don't do a controlled walk-around. If I remember right, most of us do an uncontrolled wander-around. We kind of wander around the car and say, do you guys have any questions? We keep repeating, well, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? So we need to learn to do a controlled walk-around. Step number 1 is a controlled walk-around. Number 1 under that, the key word in this step is what? Controlled. If you're giving your walk-around presentation, this is a car and this is the front of the car. If you're up here under the hood and Betty wanders around to the back of the car and goes back here and says, Joe, what's this? Does controlled mean I drop everything and I go back here and I say, Betty, that's that third brake light? You know, they added that a couple years ago for safety. Or should I say, Betty, that's a good question. I'm going to cover that in a second. But if you would, come back up front. There's a couple things I want to cover for you real quick. That would be control, keeping them together. Now, when you talk about a control walk-around, you can only control 3 or 4 adults for a certain amount of time. Somewhere in that 10, 12, 14-minute range, maybe 15 minutes if you stretch it. And then you're going to start losing them. But you have to maintain control for that brief amount of time. Number 2 down here, and the blanks are already filled in. I just want to remind you. 3 things are going to be determined in your presentation and by your presentation. The number of sales you make, the gross you hold, and how much money ends up in your pocket, your commission that you're going to earn. And that's all going to be determined by this presentation. Remember that 80% of your selling is done out here on the lot in your presentation step of the sale. It's done on 20% of the features that we learned over here. So we've got to find the 20% in our investigation and cover them in our presentation. Number 3, to sell more cars, you need to give a presentation that's going to build a sale. The B stands for brief. It needs to be brief. Your controlled walk-around. Remember, we're not going to walk around the car and tell them everything we know about the car. We're going to do our walk-around, and in this point, we're going to give them general information in every area. Let me clarify that. But we're going to focus. Our focus is going to be on the features, advantages, and benefits that they care most about, not everything that we talk about. We're going to share general information in every step of the walk around, but our focus is going to be on the things that are most important to them, that 20%. The U stands for uninterrupted. You can't give a good walk around presentation if you say, excuse me, I got to go answer that phone call. I'll be right back in a second. That's an interrupted walk around. You're going to lose that continuity, that you're going to lose all the effort and everything you've worked for up to that point. The I stands for interesting. This needs to be interesting. You can't stand there with both hands in your pocket leaning on a car saying, well, what do you guys think? Is this the kind of car you're looking for? Do y'all have any questions? Reading the sticker. They can read the sticker to themselves. They don't need you to do that. What they need is an enthusiastic professional in sales who helps them to and through the buying process. And that's what they're looking for. And if you help them do that, they'll buy the car from you. The L stands for lead to the benefit they want or need. You remember in your investigation they told you what they want and need? In your presentation, you need to lead to those. Now, Bob, I know you said you're going to be using the car for business, didn't you? Yes, and when you're carrying clients, I imagine it's pretty important that they're comfortable too, isn't it? Yes, sit down here in the back seat. I want to show you something. Now, there's plenty of leg room there, isn't there? Yes, there is, Joe, and with those clients back there, that's kind of important, isn't it? Absolutely. And now we got another check mark, and we led to that on purpose. D, develop the urgency and desire to own now. You have to develop the urgency and desire to own now. And that's one of those problems with that question when you don't have that white car they're looking for and you say, no, but we can get you one. You've taken all the urgency off buying a car today. There's no reason to get it now. You said I can get it anytime you want to. There's a couple of other things that I want to talk to you about. We're going to pull some more from the selling tape set and bring it in here for a second. I said before that everything needs to be assumptive. You need to assume they're there to buy, assume they're going to buy your product. You need to get in the habit of making assumptive statements. Assumptive statements are just positive things that you say about the product or about them or, boy, you look good in that. Positive statement. Now, you don't want to blow smoke. They'll catch on. But positive statement. This thing gets great gas mileage. You're going to love your new truck. Positive statements add value. Now, you want to fill your presentation with as many positive statements as you can. It's like when you trade drivers and you pull up next to that big mirrored window at the bank in the parking lot down there. Before you take off, look out the window and make a positive statement. Boy, you guys look great in your new BMW. If you want to add even more value, throw in the question, don't you? Don't you guys look great in your new BMW? Bob, take a look there before we drive off. You guys look pretty good in this, don't you? Yes. Added more value. Get in the habit of filling your presentation with assumptive statements. Throughout the thing, every time you can, at every opportunity. Car gets great gas mileage. They were concerned about economy. Boy, you're going to love the mileage on this. It's going to be nice to drive by that gas station every other week and just honk and wave instead of having to stop all the time. It'd be kind of neat, huh? Yes, add more value. Another thing you need to learn to do is create some urgency. I worked with a fellow one time, long time ago, in that first dealership. And when a customer pulled on the lot and he was talking to him in his investigation, one of his questions were, are you guys going to keep that little car you pulled up in, or are you going to trade it? And almost everybody said, we're going to trade it. And he made this statement, boy, we've been getting a lot of those in on trade lately. Now, he moved right away from it. Right after that, he said, boy, we've been getting a lot of those in on trade lately. Now, he goes through the selling process. When he's doing his write-up and talking about trade values, we know we're not giving them as much as they'd like to have for the car. We're giving them all it's worth, but it's still never enough. Now, that statement he made on the lot, we've been getting a lot of those in on trade lately. Will that help you close the sale now that you're in the negotiation step? Sure, you can fall back to, gosh, we've been getting a ton of cars like yours in lately. I don't know if you know it, but the market's about to drop. Or to add some urgency when they say, I'm looking for a white one of these. Do you have one? If you have one, instead of saying, oh, sure, we got 12 of them over here, say, gosh, if we're lucky, that's the most popular color. Does that add some urgency to the sale when you're trying to close later? Well, let's go ahead and get you wrapped up while we got one of these still out here. Come on in, let's take care of the paperwork. How do you want it registered in your name or her name? That gives us a reason to close the sale now. Not tomorrow, but now. You got some homework tonight. You need to write out 15 assumptive statements. 15 assumptive statements, 15 positive things that you need to get in the habit of saying, well, you guys are going to look good in that. Boy, this is going to be great on those windy mountain roads. Or you guys are going to have a great time in this. This sure holds the kids and all their stuff back there, doesn't it? Yes. Assumptive statements, you want to add even more value, add a question to the end of it. Boy, you guys sure look good in this, don't you? Sure be nice to pass that gas station, just honk and wave now and then, won't it? Yes. Number 4, 2 keys to an effective walk-around presentation. An effective investigation and lots of product knowledge. We said product knowledge, you need a lot of it, but you're only going to use a little bit of it. To be able to use that little bit, you've got to have more than you need. Number 5, just a tip, start your presentation on the lowest model so that people get to see the price increase. They say, I want to look at a new Camaro. Say, great, let me show you where the product line starts. It starts over here at this 12.9 car. Well, I don't want that. I don't want the inexpensive seats and all. I want more stuff. And then they get up to the 14.9, the 16.9, the 29.9, whatever it is. Move them up the product line from start to finish, and they'll have a better understanding of your pricing, and you won't get as many price objections when we talk about serious objections. Even if the person walks in and says, I want the SE model, the one with all the special equipment, say, great, let me show you where our product line starts. And I would still walk them past the basic one and explain, let me show you where this starts, and talk about what the SE has on it. And we add to it as we go. Number 6, another common question about presentations is, when do you give it? Or where do you give it? Well, number 6, you can give your walk-around presentation either before or after you do your demonstration. It doesn't matter. You can do it before you give a demonstration, or you can do it after you give a demonstration. Now, we'll go through both of these. A, if you give your presentation before your demonstration, the idea is for you to have the customer end up in the passenger seat so that you can easily make that transition from on the lot to a demonstration. They're already sitting in the passenger seat, the family's sitting in the back seat. It's real easy to start the car and say, let's go for a quick spin. So as you do your walk around, you want to walk around the car and end up in that 6th position there. Now, it could be the 5th position. I don't know what your manufacturer recommends for a walk around. I'm not trying to change it, I'm just trying to give you some tips on it. You need to go back and review your factory tapes on a walk around and go by their procedure. Just a couple of tips here. If you're making your presentation on the lot, have you noticed we got all these cars in a row and you're trying to present this car and it's sitting right next to this car? Have you noticed how often Bob and Betty, they go over at this one and they say, well, what's the difference between that one and this one? Then they go over 3 cars over and they say, well, how come this one's $300 less? And some other people walk up and they say, do you mind if we look at this too? It won't bother you, will you? I mean, I know you're trying to make your presentation to make $400, but can we just kind of get in and out and disrupt you? Bad luck. At least move this out of the line. Get it out here, kind of out in the open in the aisle where your manager hates that you park it. Get it out here so that at least it's not right next to something. Better yet, put it over here under the tree in the corner of the used car lot where you won't have so many distractions. That's the advantage of doing your presentation off the lot. Instead of taking it out under the tree, take it out and park it in the park, and you'll be the only car out there. There won't be any other cars to look at. There won't be any other customers. You won't get a phone call while you're out there, and you'll be able to focus on the customer you're with and sell them this particular car. Now, if you're going to do this off the lot, you have to pick the car you're pretty much going to send them home in. But if you gathered the information in your investigation, this is easy. Say, Bob and Betty, based on what you told me, here's the car for you, and let me tell you why. In fact, let's take it for a quick spin. Windy road out here to the park. And on this part of your demonstration, you're showing them the features, advantages, and benefits that are important to them while you're driving. If Bob's never had a multi-function speed control system with memory, if he's never had a cruise control, while you're driving, you say, Bob, let me explain this to you, show you how easy it is to use. Don't wait till Bob's driving. Say, Bob, fiddle with that cruise, see if you can figure it out. So you show them the things. On your first part of the demonstration, you also want to demonstrate the performance and handling for the customer. We don't want them Ricky racing, sliding around corners, and you don't either. But you should demonstrate the performance and handling while you're driving. If you're going to do it after, on page 75, if you're going to do your presentation on the lot, or off the lot rather, after your demonstration, then you want to end up with the customer in the driver's seat so that they're ready to take off and drive. And we're going to talk about some tips on a demonstration. Again, while you're driving, cover the features, advantages, and benefits. And there's some benefits of doing this off the lot. How many of you tried that? In a class of 50 or 60, generally 5 or 10 people have tried it, and I always ask, how's it work? And they say, oh, it works great. If your management is flexible, try taking the car off the lot and giving your presentation out here in the park or wherever you normally trade drivers. You'll find that you have a lot more control, a lot less distractions. So try it if you have the opportunity. What to cover in your walk around on page 76. This is a section that has hardly any blanks in it. You need to go back and read and reread this part of your workbook, as you do with all the other tape sets. Go back and read and reread this. What should you cover in your walk around? We'll go through a couple of these. Number one there, it says front of the car. You're going to give them general information. This is a Camaro. This is a bumper. It's a 5-mile-an-hour bumper. You're going to give them general information. You're going to focus on what they said was most important, though. When you open the hood, be careful with engine sizes and things like that. If you're talking to somebody that hasn't brought up engine size, they're concerned maybe about comfort and just a dependable car, and you say, and this has a new 4.7-liter engine in it. They may go, whoa, I didn't think about that. How big is that? Well, I don't know. It's got 300 horsepower, though. Oh, I don't think we wanted to. We were really concerned about economy. Oh, no, this gets good economy. I don't know. My daddy said if it was a big motor, it must get bad mileage. Be careful talking about specifics of things that they haven't asked you about. General information. Well, folks, that's an engine. Works great. It's the most reliable in the industry. Shut the hood. Unless they want to know more about it. Not quite, but you know what I mean. The right front of the car, some things, common sense things to talk about: tires, wheels, aerodynamics, brakes, safety, and then the 3 most important things to them. Step number 2. And again, you can fluctuate between these. Step number 2 on page 77, give a great demonstration. Give a great demonstration of your product. Again, when I need help on what things mean, I generally look in the dictionary. Demonstrate, straight out of the dictionary, means to display, operate, and what do you think that blank is? Display, operate, and show how a product works. Congratulations. Show them how it works. Now, just a common sense question. Do you have to be there to show them how it works? So I guess that's an unwritten rule in a demonstration, straight out of the dictionary. You've got to be there to show them how it works. The product does not demonstrate itself. You lose a lot of sales because you don't go on that demonstration drive. In fact, I would guess you lose at least half of the ones you could have made by not going. And I know we all know some people that don't go on demonstration drives, and they sell a few cars. Maybe they sell quite a few. Just so you know, they're missing quite a few if they're selling quite a few. But whatever. Number 2, why is a demonstration so important? What's the purpose of a demonstration other than to show how it works? Why is it so important? Before we buy anything, before you bought that tie, before you bought that pen in your pocket, before you buy a pack of gum, haven't you already mentally taken ownership? Didn't you already chew that gum before you plop down the quarter to get it? Well, the same thing with this car. They're not going to buy it. They're not going to sign their name in the business office there until they've already owned it, mentally owned it. They've already driven it around the block, taken it back and forth to work, taken that trip to Yosemite we were talking about. And they're not going to sign their name until they've taken mental ownership. The demonstration drive is one of the best places to get people to take mental ownership. While they're driving this car, assuming you shut up for a minute, once you trade drivers, you got to stop talking. While they're driving this car, they're driving along thinking about driving this back and forth to work. They're driving along thinking about taking this up to Yosemite. They're driving along using this product, and they're putting those mental pictures of ownership. You can watch them adjust in the seat. You can fiddle with the radio. They fiddle with the sunroof. They start looking around. They pass windows. They look how they look in this thing. All those are implanting those mental pictures of ownership, unless you start talking again. Some of us get so much motor mouth we can't let the customer do this. They're driving along thinking about our product, and we can't stop talking. We say, hey, did you hear who won the ball game yesterday? And they're going, oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking about owning your product. What'd you say? Stop talking. Give them a chance to get the feel of the car. It's one of your best selling tools. Number 3, which customer should get a demonstration of the product? Which customer should you get behind the wheel of your product? I heard that. All of them. Well, I agree you need to, and you need to make a commitment to do that, because this is the selling process. You're not doing your job if you're not putting people behind the wheel of these things. That'd be like going to a stereo store and the guy not letting you listen to it. That wouldn't work. It'd be like going to the TV store and them not turning it on. You have to demonstrate your product. That's the key point. And a demonstration is one of the most time-consuming parts of it. So I know you'd like to find out if they're going to buy before you go to any trouble. It just doesn't work that way. We go to the trouble to create a buyer. If we try to make them prove ahead of time that they can afford the car and want the car before we go to any trouble, you're going to miss more sales than you'll ever make. Number 4, how long should a demonstration last? Another common question I get. I don't think you can put a time limit on it. I think the kid on the skateboard, his dad said, go find you a truck you like, and we'll go down by it this afternoon. Quick spin around the block. We've all had Mr. and Miss Smith said, Joe, now this is the last car we're ever going to own. You may have to drive them on a 100-mile round trip drive out here to make sure that they like it. That may take you half an hour, hour and a half sometimes. Number 5, when do you demonstrate the vehicle? Again, before or after your presentation. That one's up to you. There's some rules that we need to follow on a demonstration. I was always told to just get people behind the wheel, and I got them behind the wheel. We went around this little circle, and I came back and said, well, do you want to buy it? That would not qualify for a good demonstration. We want to make sure our presentation, our walk-around is good and effective, and we want to make sure our demonstration is good and effective. The rules to make sure it is. Number 1, is the vehicle ready to present and demonstrate? Is this car ready to drive? You got cars out there on the front line with no gas that won't run, that are dirty. Those are not ready to present. People make a first impression of you, and they make a first impression of that product. And if they're considering a Mustang this time, they've been driving Camaros for years, and they say, we're going to go take a look at a Mustang. We're going to compare the two this year. They walk up to your Mustang. You know that one's on the front line that's dead, that's got no gas in it? That's the one they're going to want to look at. And they walk up to that, and you have to say, oh, you know, well, the battery's dead on this one, and this doesn't have any gas in it. Let's take a look at a different. First impression of your product. Is that good luck or bad luck for your sale? Bad luck. You just made a bad first impression. Good luck selling them a product if they had that bad first impression. And I know you just said, well, it's not my fault. It's the lot man, the manager. No, it's your fault. We have to assume some responsibility out here. It's our responsibility as the salespeople out trying to sell these things to help merchandise them. You get the dirty cars off the front line. You get the ones that won't run off the front line. And if they won't run, you push them out to service. And if service lets them roll back on the lot without fixing them, you push them out there again until they get tired of seeing that thing. It's killing your paycheck. It's also killing your dealership's paycheck. You got to get the bad cars off the front line. Number 2, another rule of a demonstration. You have to be in the car. You have to go on a demonstration drive. Now, I grew up in a small town, about 900 people. My uncle, his name's Ben, he would not want you on a demonstration drive in his pickup truck. He buys a new Chevy truck every 2 years. And he doesn't want to mess with a car salesman. He just wants to know how much it's going to run. He wants to go drive this thing. Now, I could get him, if I was a salesman, to let me go with him around the block the first time. I'd say, Ben, let me just ride around the block with you real quick, make sure there's nothing wrong. You can throw me out when you come back and take it out for a while. If your dealership is okay with a customer driving it themselves, at least make sure that you've gone with them on that initial demonstration. And I'd be real careful with that one, or they may end up at a dealership down the street in your product talking about a new car that they have, showing them and comparing them. It happens to you all the time. Number 3, you always drive first. I was talking to a group of new people one time, and I was in class, and I said, why do you drive first? And this new salesman said, well, you know, to make sure they don't hit anybody on the lot. Another one said, because insurance requires it. Another one said, you know, to explain anything that's wrong. You drive first to sell the vehicle. And yes, all those other things may be extra things, extra reasons we're doing it, but you're driving first so that you can present the features, advantages, and benefits of this product to your customer. You always drive first. Number 4, when you trade drivers in a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted. Trade drivers in a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted. Don't stop in the middle of a 4-lane highway out here and say, hurry up, Bob, there's a truck coming. Take off quick. Slow this thing down. Don't rush them. They already think they're rushed. And in fact, if you're not in a hurry, they tend to be in a hurry because they think we're in a hurry. You got to slow this down. You got to make sure all the adjustments are adjusted correctly, the seat, the mirrors. You got to make this a comfortable demonstration drive for them. The more comfortable it is, the better the mental picture it is, the more likely they are to own it. Just a couple of tips down here. Have the customer make all the adjustments. Get them adjusting that power. So don't adjust it for them. Say, Bob, the controls are down there. Now move it forward, move it backward. I would quiz them on every part of that adjustable seat. Now, if you got the lumbar support adjusted, well, I don't know. What's this thing sticking me in the back? That's the lumbar support. Let's let a little air out of it. And how about the tilt, and how about the thigh support? The same with the outside mirror, the left mirror, the right mirror. And then I always told customers, I said, you know, just sit back and relax, take a deep breath for a second. And you're amazed. Adults take a deep breath, and they sit back and relax. What I want you to do, Bob, is just get more familiar with the controls here for a second. You've been driving cars for years, but this one's a little different. Take a look around there for a second. And they do, and then we take off, and now they're more familiar with the car. The demonstration drive is going to be better. Number 5, always take a pre-planned route. Always take a pre-planned route. But tip number A down here says plan a variety of driving situations. You want a pre-planned route, but you don't want to go on the same route with all the people. If you've got a route that mostly demonstrates highway driving and somebody spends all their time in city driving, you need to demonstrate the city driving features. If Bob and Betty are buying a little Geo Metro for their daughter, that little one with that little bitty engine in it, and they want an automatic because she can't drive a 5-speed, and you got you and Bob and Betty and their daughter in the car, and you're in this little Geo Metro, and he's concerned about performance, I would demonstrate the performance feature while I was driving if I was you. I wouldn't wait for him to get behind the wheel, because we know what they do. They stop in the middle of the street. You got 4 adults in this little Geo Metro, and they punch it, and nothing happens. This thing winds up and it hums and may explode, but it's not going anywhere. So while you're driving, you want to demonstrate that performance feature. And you would want to remind them that normally it would just be their daughter in the car, and now there's 4 adults. Say, Bob, normally Cindy's going to be driving the car by herself, and you're concerned about performance. Remember that we have 4 adults in the car. I'm going about 35 miles an hour, normal on-ramp speed. Watch this. And now you punch it, it kicks down a gear, gets on the freeway, especially if it's a downhill on-ramp. And now Bob feels a little bit better about the performance. Number 6, one of the most important steps, maintain control. This is your car. You tell them when to stop, when to turn, when to head back. And if you can't control this demonstration drive, good luck closing this sale later and handling the paperwork and negotiating and all the rest of the parts of selling. Any questions on a demonstration? Does all that make sense? I'm sure it makes sense. The only question is, will you go to the trouble to do it with all the people? The next step in your presentation, we've talked about your presentation. We talked about your demonstration. There's another step of your presentation. This is called your, for lack of a better word, a wander around and a service walk. You know, after you get back off a demonstration or after you've done your walk around presentation, there's going to be the question and answer period. That's when they fiddle around the car and they get in the back seat, they get in the trunk, they open the engine, they look at things, touch things. Now, most of the people are going to want to do that, but it's not a requirement. You don't, if you get the buying signals, you don't say, well, guys, we should wait here for a minute and you guys wander through the car and get in the trunk and all that stuff. When it's time to close, close. But this would be an optional step. The service walk, that tour through the dealership should not be an optional step. You want to make these people as comfortable with your dealership as you can possibly make them. Down the street, all they got was Slam Dunk Billy down there, trying to sell them something on the spot. No rapport, no investigation, no presentation, no demonstration, no follow-up, no introductions around the place. People are buying 3 things. They're buying you, they're buying the place, and they're buying the product. 71% buy because they like you, trust you, and respect you. Something like 78% of the people buy a car where they have their serviced. That means service is real important to them. And you have to sell them the product. What's a wander around? It's the question and answer period. When do you do it? Whenever it's time. I know people who do their service walk first. I know people who do it last. You just have to make sure you do it before you ask for the order. This is a value building step of the selling process. Number 5 down here. Again, most important, maintain control. Throughout this entire selling process, you need to maintain control. When you say, come here, they need to follow you. You need to control the conversation with how you're going to use it, business or pleasure. You need to get positive responses when you want them. You're going to use this for business, weren't you? Yes. That's the control we're talking about. And it's positive control. There's no pressure. There's no pushing and shoving in professional selling. Let's finish this section and this series with the last step of your presentation steps is your evidence manual, step number 4. Your evidence manual. That's your book of proof. You know, an attorney takes evidence to court to prove his case. You need to have evidence to prove your presentation. People have been taught to believe what they see but doubt what they hear. You've been telling them and telling them and telling them. It's real handy when you can show up with an article from Car and Driver, Road and Track, Motor Trend, Consumer Guide. Say, Bob, you guys were concerned, one of your major questions was about the performance features on the car. Look what Car and Driver said about this car last month. Look how it compared it to that other car you were looking at. See, it got a much higher rating. The other car's a nice car. It just doesn't have the features you guys said were important. I'm amazed in class we always ask, how many of y'all subscribe to a non-automotive publication? You know, like Better Homes and Gardens, Boating World, Golf Digest, Life Magazine, and most of the hands in the rooms go up, especially if you throw in TV Guide. Do you know TV Guide is the most read publication in America? Do you know that the average person watches about 40 hours of TV? That's a little trivia, in case anybody ever asked you. We ask, how many of you subscribe to something other than a car publication? And almost every hand in the class goes up. And then I say, how many of you subscribe to an automotive publication? Car and Driver, Road and Track, Motor Trend, Consumer Guide. Do you know almost all the hands go down? Maybe we should do a little word association here. Cars, car buyers, car business, car magazines. Do you think we all learn as much as we could possibly learn? Shouldn't we get a little more interested in our product? I don't care if you like cars or not. You're selling them. You're going to make a living based on these things. You don't have to like them, but you have to learn a lot about them. You don't have to like every model in your product line, but you have to learn about every model. I was talking to a Toyota salesman one time years ago, and he said, this was in class, he said, I never sell a Cressida. I said, why is that? And he said, I don't like them. He said, I think they're a lot of money for the car that you get. I said, well, what do you do if somebody comes in and asks for one? He said, I try to switch them. Well, what if that doesn't work? He said, well, I guess they leave. Good thinking. Really good thinking. You have to sell them what they want and what they need. And you have to be as excited about that product that you don't really care about as you are about the one that you love. And when you give them your excitement and your enthusiasm and a good product presentation, then they may buy it with good closing questions. What's in your evidence manual? Well, it needs to have at least 3 sections or 3 parts of the information. You, the dealership, and the product. Now, there's a whole list of things here that you could put in your evidence manual. But one of the best things is a letter from a happy customer. While you're out there on the lot and the customer says, Joe, you did a nice job. I appreciate the way you worked with us. Say, get in the habit, there's a little script at the bottom of the page. Just get in the habit of memorizing this script. Somebody says something nice to you, say, folks, thank you very much. And a lot of other people had the same kind of questions you had, and they'd sure appreciate knowing how you felt. Would you guys do me a favor and just jot that down for me? If you want to get comments letters, you need to ask for comments letters. And to get them, you need to have a pen and a piece of paper in your hand. You're out in service. Somebody says, boy, you guys got a great service department. Say, gosh, I really appreciate knowing that. And a lot of other customers have the same kind of questions you had, and they'd sure appreciate knowing how you felt. Would you do me a favor and just jot that down for me? If you ask for 10, you'll get 5 or 6. And then you fill your evidence manual with letters from happy people. You also want to put awards that you've won, pictures of your family, pictures of the things that you do. You want a short biography of the dealership. Your dealer spends jillions of dollars around town supporting who knows what. Everything from the drug prevention program to the Lions Club to the local high school to the Kiwanis. They're involved in almost everything, and they spend a lot of money in the community. But buyers never hear about it. You might have somebody that's ripping your head off on price here. While you're having their trade appraised, you say, let me go have my manager look at your car. While I'm gone, thumb through this. And they flip over to the local high school. Your dealer, a little biography there and a picture of the high school band. You sent them to the band trip in Hawaii last year, bought their uniforms. And he's grinding about price, and he looks at that picture, and he says, oh, that's our daughter in the picture. You think he might grind you a little less when you come back, now that he's found another reason to give you more money? An evidence manual is your book of proof about why they should do business with you, your dealership, and why they should buy your product. How do you make one? You get anything from a 3-ring binder, those plastic page holders, cut out articles, slide them in there. When do you use it? A lot of people use them to add value to their presentation. Folks, coming in, I want to show you a couple things. A lot of people use them at the end of their presentation. I always use mine anytime I'm going to leave the customer, especially after I've gotten a commitment to purchase. Come on inside and let's take care of the paperwork. If I leave them, they're going to have an evidence manual in front of them. And I found that I can get them to read it easier if I flip open to the first page. Say, Bob, I'm going to have my manager take a look at your car real quick. You guys go ahead and thumb through this, and you open the first page for them. If you do that, they're more likely to read it. You put an article in there from Car and Driver, Road and Track, Motor Trend, Consumer Guide. Highlight the part that you want them to read, and it's amazing. You could have an article that's overall negative about your product. And there's one sentence in there that says, this car has the best power-to-weight ratio of any other vehicle in its class. Just highlight that. They're not going to read the rest of the article. There's 57 pages in there. They're going to read what you highlighted. So keep it simple and make it easy. I hope you see the value of following the basics. I hope you understand that these basic steps of selling literally walk the customer through the buying process. It's a shame, we had that ups versus all these other people before, repeats, referrals, B-backs over here. Which group of people do you tend to take the shortcuts with? Which group do you tend to not build rapport with, not investigate with? The one that doesn't like you. And the selling process is to make them like you. It's a shame that we spend 95% of our business with this group and then skip the steps that would make them a productive group. You can't take shortcuts out on the lot with any customer. If there was a customer you could take shortcuts, it's with the friendlies, the repeats, the referrals, the B-backs. Bob comes back in to buy the 2nd or 5th car from you. It's a little easier. You say, hey, Bob, what's going on? How you guys doing? Well, who's the car for this time? My daughter needs another one. And you visit over a cup of coffee, You show him the car, you drive around the block, you talk about old times, and you send him home in a car, and you get a lot of money for it. That's a lot of fun. That's the easy way to sell. If you're going to depend on walk-in traffic, you can't skip steps of the basics. There's no skipping steps. Every time you skip a step, reach in your pocket, take about half of an average voucher and throw it away, because that's what you're doing. And speaking of that, you know, when you drop the price $1,000, and you say, oh, we can save you $1,000 on this. How much does that come out of your pocket? I forgot. What, $250? Carry you about, I don't know, maybe $10,000 in Monopoly money in your pocket. And every day, every time you catch yourself dropping the price, oh, I can save you $1,000. Well, wait a second. Reach in your pocket, take out $250 Monopoly money and throw it away, because that's what you just did with $250 of your commissions. Every time you come down, every time you skip a step, throw away another $150 or $125, whatever half of your average voucher is. You can go through several $1,000s in a day just talking to a very few people with the bad habits that we've developed. In this series, we've talked about everything from getting you organized and ready to sell. We talked about working you through that planner, and I hope you're using the planner and starting to see the value in it. I also hope your managers are sitting down with you in your one-on-ones daily and going over everything. We talked to you about goal setting, how to set clear, realistic goals. We talked about all these things because the title of this class was How to Double Your Income. And I would hope that you agree that we've showed you half a dozen or a dozen ways to double your income. But you're going to have to go back and actually use the information. You've got a homework book to help you through all this. After we got you tracked and we got you goals, now we got you following the basic steps. The key to success out here is that you become a professional. There's 4 areas that control your success: your skills, your work habits, your attitudes, and your choice of customers. And the people that I've met in this business, we talked about early in the presentation, people that make a lot of money selling cars, there's some things that are real consistent with these $100,000+ a year people. Real consistent. They got a good group of repeat and referral customers. They spend their time out on the lot giving presentations and demonstrations. They don't talk price on the lot. And they make sure that they take care of their customers after the sale as well. And not just follow up to get them back in, but follow up to make sure that everything's right with the car. There aren't any shortcuts in selling. You're in the highest paying profession, and it doesn't make sense to try to take shortcuts. Shortcuts get you back down to the $30,000 a year. We had that figure on that second or third page that we covered. It said 10 cars and $30,000 a year. Did you know that almost all the people are not in the 80-car range? They're not in the $300,000 range. Almost all the people, 80% plus of all the salespeople in our business, fall into this category and stay here their entire career. And it's such a shame to be just an average or below average person in the highest paying profession. You got to go for the gold. You got to go for the big time. You got to do more than the average person's willing to do out here. The thing that I finally realized is you got to go to work either way, whether you screw around all day or whether you make it happen. And there's plenty to learn about selling. I wish this was the end of everything you need to know about selling. This is just the beginning. At the end of every tape set and every workbook and every class I hold, the last page says this is not the end. This is just the beginning. If you have our other tape set on closing and handling objections and staying off price, you need to review that, because as you go through the basics, you're going to get hit with those reflex objections, those price questions. If you have our other tape set on follow-up and prospecting, you need to review that, because we want to build a career. What we talked about here on this set was getting you ready to sell, and we got the basics down. You still need more. There's closing and there's follow-up and prospecting. We want to get you a good short-term success, and we want to also fill in the blanks on long-term success. And that's going to depend on you. Take this course serious. Do your homework. Forget the peer pressure. I don't care who's screwing around in class watching this with you and they're making fun of the information on the tape. You and I both know that it'll work for you. And you forget what those guys tell you. If you see that you can be more successful by doing these things, then you go out and do it. And you don't ever pay any attention to anybody who's not as successful as you'd like to be. You got a great career ahead of you, a great opportunity. Make it happen for you and your family. I'll see you on the next series. Until then, have a great day.
This concludes this segment. Stay tuned for some important information about our other training products and workshops.